Story 1. I had already been driving for several minutes before I realized the person in my back seat wasn't my son. It was a brutally hot day in early June 2018. The sun was merciless, turning the inside of the car into a moving furnace. I was driving with my 10-year-old son Ethan from our home in Ohio to my parents' house in the quiet, rolling green hills of Kentucky. The old SUV had no working air conditioning. Hot air blew through the open windows but brought no relief at all. Ethan started shifting in his seat and complaining more and more that he really needed to use the bathroom. His voice became whiny, persistent, and increasingly irritating. The tension that had been building between us the entire day finally exploded into a loud and pointless argument. We said hurtful things to each other, personal stuff that had been sitting under the surface for a long time. I raised my voice, he raised his voice back. Old frustrations came out. My stress from work, his behavior at school, small things that suddenly felt big. After the argument, the car fell into a heavy, cold, and uncomfortable silence. No music, no conversation, just the monotonous sound of the tires on the dark interstate, the occasional roar of passing trucks, and the heavy breathing of two tired people. Around 9:30 p.m., I finally saw a blue rest area sign glowing in the distance. I took the exit with a deep sigh of relief. The rest area was small and isolated from the rest of the world. There was only one brick building with two bathrooms, a couple of old vending machines that hummed quietly under the pale lights, and a few weathered wooden benches. The parking lot was almost completely empty. The only other vehicle was a large white pickup truck with tinted windows parked a short distance away under the weak yellow lights. The place felt strangely quiet and lonely. Ethan quickly unbuckled his seatbelt, jumped out of the car, and ran toward the bathroom without saying a single word. I left the engine running, leaned my head back against the seat, and closed my eyes for a moment. My heart was still beating fast from the argument. I stared at the thick, dark trees surrounding the rest area. The trees looked unusually dense and threatening in the darkness. A vague, uneasy feeling settled deep in my chest, but I told myself it was just exhaustion and stress playing tricks on my mind. A minute or two later, I heard the back door open and then softly close. I didn't turn around. I assumed it was Ethan, still angry and not wanting to talk to me. Without saying anything, I put the car in drive and slowly pulled out of the parking lot, merging back onto the dark interstate highway. Almost immediately, I noticed that the white pickup truck was leaving at the same time and staying unusually close behind me. I changed lanes to let it pass. It followed. I sped up a little. It matched my speed. Then the driver started flashing his high beams repeatedly and aggressively. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. A bad feeling grew stronger and stronger in my stomach. I moved to the right lane. The truck pulled up alongside me. The man inside rolled down his window and began shouting something, his face serious and urgent in the flashes of passing headlights. I cracked my own window. Over the noise of the road, I heard the words that made my blood run cold. "That's not your kid. The person sitting in your back seat is not your son." For a few terrifying seconds, my brain simply refused to process what he was saying. Then I slowly looked in the rearview mirror and felt pure ice-cold horror flood my entire body. The figure sitting behind me was much larger than Ethan. It had adult proportions, broad shoulders, long legs, completely wrong size for a 10-year-old boy. My hands started shaking violently. My heart was hammering like it wanted to break out of my chest. Cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I slammed on the brakes and swerved the car onto the grassy shoulder. The pickup driver stopped behind me, jumped out, and ran to my window. He was breathing heavily. "Listen to me carefully. That's not the boy who went into the bathroom. Someone else got into your car while he was inside." Before I could even react, the back right door suddenly flew open. A tall, dark figure jumped out and sprinted with shocking, unnatural speed straight into the pitch-black woods beside the highway. I only managed to catch a glimpse of a long coat and messy hair before the shadows completely swallowed the intruder. Pure panic took complete control of me. Terrible thoughts flooded my mind. Where was my real son? Was he hurt? Was he lying somewhere in the bathroom unconscious, or worse? I quickly turned the car around and raced back to the rest area, with the kind stranger following right behind me. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel steady. When we arrived, Ethan was standing outside the bathroom door under the dim light, looking small, tired, and a little confused. The wave of relief that hit me was so powerful that my legs almost gave out. I jumped out, ran to him, and hugged him as tightly as I could, fighting back tears. The pickup driver stayed with us and explained everything he had witnessed. Someone had quietly slipped into the back seat of my running car while Ethan was in the bathroom. We sat there for a long time trying to process what had happened. I was still trembling. Ethan was pale. That night, the rest of the drive felt completely different. All the anger between us disappeared. We talked nonstop about everything. We laughed together. We arrived at my parents' house close to midnight and told the whole family the story. They listened in stunned silence. Even today, many years later, I still feel a cold chill run down my spine every time I remember that night. I never saw the intruder's face clearly, and deep down I am truly grateful for that. Some things are better left unseen forever. Story 2. We let a stranger into our car during a storm. That was the worst mistake of our lives. My girlfriend Sarah and I were driving back home to Nevada after a wonderful week in Arizona. The trip there had been perfect, full of beautiful views, good food, and happy memories. But the return journey became something we still remember, with chills running down our spines. We left in the afternoon. The first half of the drive was normal. We listened to music, talked about the trip, ate snacks. By midnight, we were deep in the empty desert. Around 12:30, we got off the freeway and stopped at a fast food place to grab something to eat. We got back on the road quickly because I wanted to reach home as soon as possible. Not long after, heavy rain suddenly started hammering the car. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. The wipers were working at full speed but could barely keep up. Sarah insisted I pull over. She didn't want me eating and driving in such poor conditions. I reluctantly agreed. We stopped on the shoulder of the highway as the rain turned into a real storm. I finished my food and suddenly there was a loud, violent bang on my window. I turned my head and nearly jumped out of my skin. A woman was standing right there, completely soaked to the bone, her pale face pressed against the glass. Her eyes looked wide and desperate. The rain was pouring down on her, but she didn't seem to care. She begged for a ride, saying her car had broken down several miles back. In the pouring rain, I felt sorry for her. Against my better judgment, I told her to get in the back seat. Sarah gave me a sharp, worried look, but stayed quiet. The moment the woman climbed into the car, the atmosphere inside changed completely. She was dripping water everywhere, but she didn't say thank you. She just sat there silently. I asked her where she was heading. No answer. I asked again. Still nothing. When I looked in the rearview mirror, she was staring directly at the back of my head with cold, empty, unsettling eyes. Something about her expression was deeply wrong. It wasn't fear anymore. It was something colder and more dangerous. The silence in the car became suffocating. The rain hammered the roof like thousands of angry fingers. My hands were sweaty on the steering wheel. I announced out loud that I would drop her off at the next town. The woman didn't react. The heavy silence continued. Then, without any warning, she let out a blood-curdling scream right behind my ear and lunged forward, wrapping her arms around my throat with shocking strength. Her nails dug deep into my skin. I couldn't breathe. The car swerved violently on the wet highway. I felt like I was going to lose consciousness. Sarah screamed in terror and started slashing at the woman's face with her long nails. The attacker's screams changed from pure rage to pain and agony, but she still wouldn't let go. I fought desperately for air. Finally, with Sarah's help, I managed to break her grip, open the back door, and physically throw the woman out into the pouring rain. She landed hard on the wet asphalt. Then she immediately started begging, "Please, please don't leave me here. Please," over and over, crying in the storm. For one terrible second, I almost felt pity for her. But then her begging twisted back into those same deranged, inhuman screams. She got up and started banging on the windows with pure madness in her eyes. Her face was twisted in fury. We locked all the doors and sped away as fast as we could. Sarah immediately called the police, describing the woman and our location. We didn't stop again until we reached home, shaken, terrified, and exhausted. That night taught us both a dark and important lesson about trust on lonely highways. Some people you try to help can turn out to be the real danger. We were lucky to escape with our lives. Story 3. The screams from the woods were fake. The trap in the road was very real. In October 2010, I was driving my black Ford F-150 from upstate New York all the way down to rural South Carolina to spend a week with my family. It was going to be a long 14-hour trip, but I planned to do it in one day. I left early in the morning, stopped once for lunch, and later ate the sandwiches I had packed. By late evening, I was already very tired. After my final gas stop around 11:30 p.m., the GPS took me off the main highway onto narrow, winding country roads. Thick forest pressed in from both sides. There were no houses, no streetlights, only complete darkness and my truck's powerful light bar cutting through the night. I knew I shouldn't be driving in such a tired state, but I was so close to my destination that I decided to push on. The road was completely empty. I was going 55 to 60 miles per hour. Then suddenly 4 bright, reflective traffic barrels appeared in the middle of the road ahead. I slammed on the brakes, my heart jumping into my throat. The truck stopped just inches before hitting them. Behind the barrels, I saw something much worse. A professional spike strip designed to shred tires. My blood froze. This was not a normal road hazard. Someone had deliberately set this up. Before I could even process what I was seeing, a desperate male voice screamed from the dark woods on the left side of the road. "Help! Please, somebody help me!" Every survival instinct I had screamed that this was a trap. I called out asking what was wrong, but got no real answer. Using my light bar, I scanned the tree line. In the corner of my eye, I spotted a man crouched low behind some bushes, watching me carefully. Then I saw 2 more dark silhouettes stepping out of the trees and walking straight toward my truck with clear purpose. I didn't panic outwardly. I casually walked back to the truck, got in, locked the doors, and quickly drove onto the dirt shoulder on the right side. I carefully went around the spike trap and floored the gas pedal. In the rearview mirror, illuminated by my red taillights, I clearly saw at least 3 men standing by the barrels, watching me escape into the night. They had prepared everything perfectly. If my truck hadn't been high enough, or if I had gotten out to move those barrels, or worse, gone into the woods to help, I probably would have never made it out alive. I drove the rest of the way with pure adrenaline pumping through my veins, constantly checking every mirror, my hands shaking on the wheel. I arrived at my family's house just after 1 in the morning, alive but deeply shaken. That night left a permanent scar in my memory. Some roads should never be taken after dark. Some traps are set by people who wait patiently for the next victim.